have this up for 15 seconds, but what you gonna do? Sometimes technology can be a little wonky.
Okay, on the next one.
Okay. We chose the negative space here to define Gothic because it's not any, we don't believe it's any set amount of tropes or groups. I mean, there's guidelines, but it's really a set of emotion and anxiety. This represents one of those guidelines, which is mental illness, and it's more modern for the Gothic because you're trapped within your own self. You can't really help yourself. This is the unnatural, and that's pictured at Umibozu, which was a Japanese demon that's, quite frankly, kind of freaky. And that's another trope of the Gothic, is that you have these unnatural, strange things. This is the uncanny, and if you don't realize, that's an android there. It's not an actual human face, and it's just sort of, as we get closer and closer to approaching reality, there's still something missing from it, and that's what the uncanny is.
This is an example of alienation. It's kind of how Sissy felt in the Empire. It's like she was a huge part of it, but she was actually more distant than she knew and was a lot different from everybody else. So she felt very alone.
This represents Kafka's castle and futility, because no matter what your goal is in the Gothic, you're not going to reach it. You're going to keep going in circles in a never-ending spiral in an attempt to reach a goal that you won't get to.
This photo represents transgression. It's the whole Twilight vampire thing, and it's kind of wanting what you can't have and what you shouldn't have because she wants to be with a vampire, which is very wrong, but she does it anyway.
This is Hoffman's Sandman, and this represents going crazy or dying, and in his case, going crazy and dying. The Gothic, it drives you crazy the deeper you get into it. Now this is the counter-argument of the Gothic is horror. This is Halloween, Michael Myers. There's a graveyard in the background, it's a Gothic trope, but there's darkness, but it stops there. There's no meaning to it, it's used just to scare you. And we see that again with Hostel. There are some Gothic tropes, like the mask, the dark hallways, but it stops there. They're not used for anything other than to scare you. They don't make you think, they're just to instill fear in you.
This is the same with the show, The Walking Dead. It's basically just meant as horror and gore and violence, and that's really all there is behind it. There's absolutely no emotion attached to it, really, that involves the Gothic. The same goes for Goosebumps. It was a show made for kids, and it's just kind of where like objects and little things come to life to kind of creep you out, but there's, again, no emotion connected behind it.
And in Saw, this is Saw 2, we have isolation, we have chains, and we have death. But again, they don't make you think. And it's important to realize, not to beat a dead horse, but horror isn't Gothic because there's no death. Gothic is all about death.
This is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and this is where we believe that horror, it may come off as only horror, but there is actually Gothic behind it. This is again transgression, wanting what you can't have, and it comes off as a horror film, but really it's very Gothic.
And then this is Edgar Allan Poe, a famous poet, and he did a lot of work with darkness and scariness, and there's a lot of meaning to it, you know, behind his work. And this is a destroyed statue, which represents the House of Greed, which was another Gothic story about just transgression. It was darkness, it was just decay and...
This is also an example of how something can come off as simply just horror, but if you watch this movie, it's really more of Gothic. The way that the structures of the building are, and the woman running away from something.
This is Study in Pink. BBC modernized it with their version of Sherlock Holmes. And you've got death brought on by science in the form of poisons, and also Sherlock Holmes, instead of just being crazy, he has a specific diagnosis. And so here we come to the futility of, it's our conclusion, that in trying to define Gothic, what we're doing is futile because there is no definition. So as hard as we try to define it, we're never going to be able to.
And greater meaning and depth of Gothic is that it's a pan-cultural genre which stretches across the entire world with no real connection, nobody was delivering it, which tells you it's a constant and that it's driven from the emotions and anxieties that we all experience.